Nice speaking to you.
No, to be honest.
No problem. So you studied the Quran, and yet you find no errors.
I didn't say I studied. I've read it.
Okay.
Right,
Did you find any errors in there?
Errors
of any of its claims?
You don't have to hide it.
Well, you get things like land being coming from the clot of blood.
From, sorry?
From clot of blood, right?
Well, actually, the word uses alaka.
Yeah.
And the word alaka has three, from my knowledge, three meanings.
This is
One is something that hangs, a blood clot, or leech.
Yeah.
Leech.
Can I just interrupt? This is one of my problems.
Yes.
The vagueness.
Yes.
It is vague.
Okay.
Which means you can interpret it a number of ways.
Yes.
So, for example, many Muslims will say the Quran has science in it.
Yes.
That couldn't have possibly been known at the time.
Yes.
And to me, it's just vague, obscure piece of writing.
So you
can interpret a number of ways.
Okay.
And when something sounds like something we
do you know much about science? Do you know a little bit about science? Okay.
Very basic.
When the fetus first is developing in the womb, does it appear to be something that it hangs from the womb, the wall of the womb?
I don't know anything about that.
Okay. I've seen a picture and it does.
Yeah.
Does it appear to be like a blood congealed? There's no circulatory system. So does it look like, or in definition, like a blood clot, or in definition without a circulatory system?
Let's say it does.
It does.
Let's say it's good.
Does it look like a freshwater leech?
Yeah. Let's say it's spot on, right?
Yes.
For argument's sake, let's say the Quran got it spot on. Don't you think there are other possibilities, like maybe it was guesswork? That's a possibility, right?
Mathematically, that's a possibility, yes.
But just putting it out there, that's a possibility.
Yes.
Another one is surgery at the time.
Yes.
I mean, cultures thousands of years before Islam were doing surgery, cutting people open, studying the human body.
But the issue here is that those things need to be seen by an electron microscope.
Yeah.
So, unless Muhammad, peace be on him, invented the electron microscope in the 7th century, it was impossible for him to see that.
We'll waiver that then. Okay, so let's go back to the guess.
Do you want? I'll give you some more now. I'll give you some more.
Can I just?
No. I'll tell you why. Because you see, when you make the assertion that it could be a guess, then you have to accept that there are many guesses in the Quran.
Yeah.
But you have to then also affirm that he guessed it right every time.
Not really, because when you're writing obscure pieces of writing,
you
can.
But what I've explained to you is not obscure.
But it is. I mean, I've read it, and it's like 1 or 2 sentences long. It's not a chapter. It's not even entire.
No, but look. The Quran is not a book of science.
I know it's a book of science, right?
It's a book of science.
And you could also say you could change the word science to just swap it for obscurity.
Well, some things are obscure. I think some things are not. So when Allah says about people who are not guided and they're in darkness, Allah describes it as a person who is in the depths of the ocean, and even when he stretches out his hand, he doesn't see it. Right? Allah gives a similitude, an example of somebody in the depths of the ocean. Even when he stretches out his hand, he doesn't see it. Now, a strange thing for a man in the 7th century who was known to be illiterate to be saying. But today, modern day science has proven that beyond a certain depth in the ocean, light refraction means that there is no light, it's darkness, absolute darkness.
Do you not think that it's a possibility that even though they hadn't gone down to the bottom of the ocean at that time, someone could sort of guess?
It's a possibility, yes.
Or
yes. Or guessed it, yes,
maybe,
of course.
Maybe he didn't even mean complete darkness.
Yes.
Maybe just meant dark.
I would accept that. I would totally accept that.
Lots of light.
Yeah, I would totally accept that people can guess some of these things. I'll guess that.
I would say that whoever wrote that particular verse, that was just a poetic way of explaining what he meant.
You know what makes it remarkable? The Quran touches on these type of subjects nearly 1,000 times, or around 1,000 times.
I don't remember that.
Well, but you.
I can remember.
Well, anyway.
3 or 4.
Okay.
Things which we.
Okay. Well, let's say there were 200 for argument's sake, and every guess was spot on to what modern day science tells you. Would that not at least give you the level of interest to delve in it a little bit deeper?
Of course, but I would also say, I'll go a step further and say, even if the Qur'an had incredible scientific, spot on detailed information, like we have today, say if you go to a bookshop library and you open up on biology or geology, even if it was spot on in all those different things, I would still say there's no reason to believe that.
Well, I think what you would do is this though. You would at least inquire how that information found itself in that book.
I'll take it a lot more seriously, don't get me wrong. But
No, hold on. I agree. What you would do, hopefully, if you were fair, is you would say, well, okay, I don't believe in a creator, and I don't believe in this, and I don't believe in that, but how did all of this information get into this book? Now, hold on a second. Now,
can I just answer that?
Yes.
Another possibility, right? We know that information is lost throughout time. Cultures rise and they fall, and when cultures is destroyed, the information and the history that comes with those cultures disappears along with it. Now, isn't it possible that a culture could rise and reach the incredible scientific
sorry, I didn't get your name. What's your name? Matthew Abbas.
Sorry?
Abbas. Matthew, what it is? Matthew, what it is?
And then be destroyed.
Everything you've said.
Does that mean God is alone?
There is a balance of probability that you could be correct. There is a mathematical balance of probability that I could be correct. If you say that previous generations saw things that you could only see with a microscope or scuba diving equipment and all these different types of equipment, and then these equipments were somehow disappeared and lost and nobody ever knew about them. They don't appear on any cave drawings of men diving down, etc., etc. Then on balance of probability, I would humbly say that it's highly unlikely that you are right.
I would say it's highly unlikely as well.
Right.
And
I would then say
far more likely than a good one.
Well, not really, because if it's highly likely that it didn't come from what you say, then when we exhaust all of the possibilities, we are left with the one maybe that you find unpalatable, which is that this could not have been from any human making. So for example, there's other facts as well. Look, that's only one facet of many facets of evidence.
Yeah, but it's not impressive.
Another facet is this: the Qur'an is revealed over 23 years. It's an oral tradition, and it's spreading fast from Arabia to China, from China to Spain, from Spain to Africa. And even today, that oral transmission, when the Imam stands up in prayer and makes a mistake of even a vowel, he's corrected from behind.
But my deal is more about it being true or not.
Yes.
Now that's a different argument.
No, it isn't. I'll tell you why it's not. Because preservation is critical. Because if there is no preservation, then people could have added this afterwards. So we have preservation. So when the Imam reads with a vowel, I've heard of scholars.
Could I just ask a question? Isn't the preservation irrelevant? Because if it was false at the beginning, then the preservation is irrelevant.
Well, generally what we find, things that are made up or that are corrupted, changed over time, the importance of those things means that they are stories the minstrels told around the fires.
Yeah, but this is the thing.
They change over time.
The thing is that almost every work of fiction, if you go to any bookshop, pull a work of fiction off the bookshelf, and it'll be the same, or almost the same as when the author originally wrote it.
Yes.
So it's kind of irrelevant.
Yes. Okay.
As to whether
No, I'll tell you why. Does that book of fiction claim to be from God?
No. My point is.
So what I'm saying is that we don't have to think about those things in that respect. The Qur'an claims that it is from Allah, and then Allah says, if this book had come from anyone other than your Lord, you would have found much discrepancy in it, many errors, many mistakes. Why does it say that? Because it touches on so many things of nature, of grammar, of the future, prophecy. Hold on a sec. No, listen. Look. If I talk about something in ancient history that the modern day historians of my time are all adamant that I'm wrong about, and then it later transpires that I was right and they were wrong, that makes the message far more stronger than if I just agreed with what the unanimous decision at that time was. So the Prophet of Allah, for example, mentions things in the Qur'an where the people pointed fingers at him and said, oh look, he's got that wrong. Our book says this name. He is quoting that name. When hieroglyphics are now translated in the 18th and 19th century, it turns out that the Qur'an was correct and all of those people were wrong.
Let me ask you a question. Give me an example of something that's written in the Quran that couldn't have possibly been written by someone living in the 6th century.
That somebody could not have?
That someone could not have possibly written in the 6th century. Just an example of something. Because to me, it's just a book like any other.
Right, okay.
By people.
Okay, so for example, when Allah talks about in Surah Anbiya, do the disbelievers not know that the earth and the heavens were one? Then we parted them, and we created every living thing from water. Hold on, we created every living thing from water. Will they then not believe? Do you think a 7th century Arab herding camels and goats could have made that comment?
I think, well, the person...
Let's be fair, come on. Let's be fair. Do you think a 7th century illiterate goat herding Arab could have made that comment?
But would he need to know? Would he need to know?
That's not the issue. The issue is that would he know to mention about the alaka? Would he know about the nature of the oceans? Would he know about the notion of the universe expanding? Would he even bother to refer to those things?
I don't think he did. I don't think, for example, the universe expanding.
It's mentioned in the Quran.
I don't think they knew about.
Well, the Quran clearly says, and it is we who are expanding it. The Quran says.
Again, that's just vague language.
No, it's not vague. No. Look, brother, I'll tell you one thing. You know,
we're looking back.
Brother, I'll tell you one thing, honestly, from the bottom of my heart. Stop going to those dodgy websites.
I'm not, I've read.
Right? No, listen to me. Answering Islam and all of these other dodgy. No, listen to me carefully. Brother, please.
Let me say something. I don't go to.
All right.
I wanted to know what the Quran says.
Okay.
I read the Quran.
Okay.
Right? I went to the source.
Right.
I didn't go to a website.
And you've not gone to anyone's opinion about those verses.
No.
Okay. Well, that's not. I would.
Yeah.
I would go to those who criticize it, and I would go to the renowned scholars at the time who can clarify it, and then make up your own mind. But I talk about a surgeon by the name of Maurice Bucaille, a French surgeon who was a medical surgeon for the king of Saudi Arabia, I believe, at one point. He was invited, I think, to Egypt to investigate the body of the Pharaoh, who was supposed to be the Pharaoh at the time of Moses. He's a Christian at that time. When he investigates the body, he remarks to his colleague, I'm shocked at how well this body has been preserved. Because he was known to have drowned. Right? When a body drowns, it decays very quickly. Very quickly. Within hours. So he says, I'm shocked how well this body has been. The colleague says, don't mention this to the Muslims. He says, why? He goes, because in the Qur'an it says, Allah says, He will preserve it as a warning to the generations to come. Now hold on, let me just finish.
Sorry,
no, very quickly, 30 seconds, and I'll let you come in. On that point, his interest grows, and he decides that he's going to do an academic study of the Qur'an, the Bible, and science. He goes and learns Arabic so he can translate it for himself. The result is he becomes Muslim, right? Through deep research and comparison. And he opens the book and he says in the opening that my intention is to get a verse from the Qur'an, a verse from the Bible, and what science says about that, and see if I can marry anything that they can basically say, whether they're correct or they're incorrect. The result was, in his opinion, that it is beyond reasonable doubt and beyond probability that you could say that this has come from anyone other than the Creator, because these people in science understand the very nuances, the very technologies that you need to decipher this type of information. And that is why many of them who do study it accept. Well, I've given you 3 or 4 now. To you they're vague, but to embryologists who've studied it, it's not vague, it's profound. And the reason why, no, but you see, the reason why it's profound is because they know the language that was spoken at that time relating to those issues. They know the language that was spoken 100 years, even 1,000 years after the Qur'an was revealed. And the Quranic language that they read, they say, wherever it's come from, it hasn't come from any human being.
So you're saying it's
come from the Creator.
So you seem to be saying that it's impressive because it's obscure.
Is that what I've said, really? I mean, come on.
I don't really understand.
No, it's obscure to you because you're not a scientist, right? No. Hold on a second. If I read a statement,
about 99% of the talking, you have to let it speak, right?
Yes.
Someone is speaking.
Yes.
So if I'm trying to find out whether the Quran is the word of God,
yes.
Right, one of the things I can go to question is whether these so-called scientific claims that were written at the time could have only been known by the people, couldn't have been known by the people at the time, right?
Yes.
So let's take the Big Bang, for example.
Right.
It says the universe is expanding.
Well, it says that's another verse, but yes, it says that, yes.
From my understanding, a lot of the words have multiple meanings, as you've already said, which means you can interpret them.
But not every word.
To fit what you want.
No, but not every word, you see. No. So some words do have a scope of meaning. So for example, the word kufr, non-Muslim, or one who rejects, has many meanings. One of the meanings are to cover up. Covers up the truth, to conceal, to hide. So many different scopes within that one word. But there are many words where the scope only exacerbates or expands upon that initial notion without divulging to something else. So when it talks about the expansion, you can't see it in any other light other than Allah is expanding the universe. Really, to be perfectly honest. And you have to play somewhat linguistic gymnastics to try to make it so. Now, you see, my question to you is this though, that if the people who would understand those verses better than anybody else are saying that, look, this is not 7th century science, right? We have to be honest and at least say that, look, where did this come from then? If we look at the grammatical miracle of the Qur'an, no editorial process, over 23 years it's revealed, orally, revised, memorized. Today, 11 million people memorize the Qur'an and read it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it.
No, can you tell me any other book that is written in another language than the one you speak that you'd be able to revise? No, except for the Qur'an. Well, is it not relevant when the Qur'an says that it is we who have made it easy for you to remember? That's what makes it relevant. Because if I taught you Cantonese to read it without understanding a word of Cantonese, and I gave you a book in Cantonese, and I said I want you to revise that whole book now, do you think it was conceivable, possible, or probable that you'd be able to do it?
The thing is, Bash, you have to look at the culture.
Forget the culture. I'm asking you, even if you were a devoted linguist, would you be able to do it?
No, speak for a second. You have to look at the culture of Islam, and there's been a long culture of learning the Quran word for word, word perfect, right?
Yes.
And kids go to school
yes.
they read it all day long.
Yes.
So it's deeply ingrained in the culture.
What about the kids of that time, though? I'm telling you, there was no culture there
But my point is
of revising the Quran, but the children did it in those days. What about that?
we're getting away from the point.
No. What I was trying to say to you is this: when we look at the provability of something, the arguments of Islam and the Quran are multifaceted. So it becomes things that I've told you, where the Quran touches on nature, the grammatical miracle of the Quran. So for example, Allah refers to many things. The way that He uses His language with absolute perfection. So for example, there's a different word for a marriage where there is children. There is a different word when there is a marriage out of children. Hold on a second. We have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of nuances like that. References made to history where there were no children. And every single time, every eloquence is perfection.
That's when it was written by God.
No, but look, but it wasn't written. It was oral over 23 years. Whilst some verses are being revealed from this part of the Quran, some verses are being revealed from that part of the Quran. The second chapter, Surah Baqarah, is 286 verses, revealed over 10 years, whilst other verses simultaneously are being revealed. Simultaneously. So the Prophet of Allah would say, these verses are pertaining to this surah. These are for Surah Baqarah. These are for such and such surah. In that, we find a verse where Allah says, Allah has chosen the middle ground for you.
I don't get.
Hold on a second.
Sorry, Bas.
Hold on a second.
So you're talking a lot, and I have to interrupt you because you might be talking for a long time, and I don't want to waste.
Give me 10 seconds and I'll let you talk. Allah says, we have chosen the middle ground for you. Where do we find that verse in Surah Baqarah? In an orally transmitted Quran, over 23 years, this surah being revealed over 10, while others simultaneously being revealed right down the middle. 143rd ayah. Now that nuance is not one nuance. We're talking about thousands of nuances all simultaneously happening at the same time. And you wish to tell me this was down to good memory, or this was down to a clever man, or this was down to people who memorized it because they had a good memory? I would urge you that when we put all of these things,
They weren't writing it down.
because our history and the way that the way that the Quran was revealed and memorized through the sayings of the Prophet and the companions, we learn that writing came later, because when Islam was spreading to nations that did not speak the language of Arabic, and the vowels basically were not in the original Arabic language, they were mispronouncing it and misreading it. To help the nations that did not speak the language of Arabic, they decided to write it down. There was no need for preservation. If today you burn every copy of the Quran in the world, we can orally transmit it and record it and have it back within days, hours. Now that phenomena of preservation, the touching on nature, the grammatical miracles in their thousands, if you wish to argue the case that all of that simply happened by chance, all of that was just guesswork,
I'm saying human beings.
or guesswork, or human beings constructed it, Allah places the challenge. So Allah says, if you are truthful and you claim, hold on a second.
Right, it wouldn't be accepted.
Okay. No. But Allah addresses that.
No matter how good.
But Allah addresses that. Allah says, if you are truthful, provide one chapter like it.
Yeah, I know.
And then Allah says, no, but then Allah says, bring your witnesses. You bring your witnesses from your side, and I bring my witnesses from my side. And you get together and you ascertain whether you've achieved that goal. The Arab world today comprises of not just Muslims, many Christians. How many years has the Quran been revealed? 14 centuries. But even their own scholars don't accept that, yes, you've managed this task.
What would happen if someone wrote an impressive verse that met the magic challenge?
Well, they haven't. That's the point.
No.
The point is they haven't.
Let's say someone writes a verse, right?
Yes.
They're not going to accept it, because in accepting it ruins the entire so-called miracle.
No, but you see, Allah says, bring your witnesses. He doesn't say just the Muslims' witnesses. You're a non-Muslim, you bring your grammatical experts. Because whenever I make a claim, I can't substantiate that claim by my own opinion, because that's my own opinion. If you say, look, I've done it, that's your opinion.
There isn't all opinion, it's all subjective opinion.
Absolutely. So whenever anyone, even a scientist, comes up with a new theory, what is it? He publishes a paper. That paper he publishes is a challenge to everyone. That if I'm wrong, come and sort me out. Show me where I'm wrong. Right?
How can you compare it to scientific theory?
Well, because
that deals with facts and fiction.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes. The Quran operates in exactly the same way. It does. It applies the same tests that we have in the falsification tests that we have in science. So Allah says, this is true. This is true. If you say it's not true, then explain why it's not true. This is correct. If you say it's not correct, show us why it's not correct. This is from Allah. If you say it's not from Allah, then you come up with an explanation as to where internet and ways of recording this information for 14 centuries. With all due respect, with all due respect, but for 14 centuries, not one vowel, not one letter, if it's mispronounced by the Imam in the mosque, whether he stands in London or New York or the Saudi, he is corrected.